Greetings, Earthlings. So this is a video, as you saw in the description, of Isaac Asimov. These are predictions he made in 1982 during an interview, and it sounded really interesting. So let's go through this together. Before we do, I got a quick question for you guys. If you were on a railroad track, and a rather large-sized tram was coming down the track at a good clip, right? And there was 5 workers on the railroad track that were going to get hit, okay? You couldn't scream to them, okay? They can't hear you, and they couldn't get away in time anyway. And you're the only one who sees this. Fortunately, you have access to a lever that will switch the track, right, to the one going to the left. Sadly, there's a single worker still on that side of the track. My question is, do you let nature take its course, or do you save 5 people's lives? Put that in the comments, please. And then stay tuned, because I've got a follow-up question to this that gets a little more interesting. Okay, let's check this out.
Now, let's look ahead to the future from this point on. First is seen by the man some call the #1 futurist around. He's Isaac Asimov, author of more than 250 books, light and heavy, fiction and nonfiction, some of the most notable being about the future, the Asimov vision of it at least. Technologically, let's see what major developments you see coming, Mr. Asimov. For instance, in space. Anything left out there that you see coming still?
Oh, everything. So far, we have only been exploring space. We are still in the Christopher Columbus stage as far as space is concerned. What remains now is to actually make use of space, to get out and stay there more or less permanently, to set up space stations, to build solar power stations, to have laboratories and factories that can do things in space that are difficult or impossible to do on Earth, and eventually to have space settlements in which thousands of people can be housed more or less permanently.
I completely agree with this. I have been baffled my whole life that in the 60s we were spending nearly 4% of our GDP to explore space, on track. That's what we should have been doing. Then we go to the moon and come back, and it just stalls out. We even made no progress on our rockets, right? Think about a telephone back then, or anything, a car, like everything exponentially has compounded and gotten better and better, and we're still just launching these like liquid dinosaur fueled rockets into space.
Do you think that's actually going to happen, or is that just it's possible to do it, but do you think it's actually going to happen in these next several years?
Well, as to whether it's actually going to happen, that's the choice that humanity has to make. We can decide not to do it, but we can also decide to do it because the technology is there. It would be expensive, require a great deal of time, energy, manpower, etc., but on the whole, not as much expense and effort and emotional input as, for instance, to maintain our military machines year after year. If we could put in $500 billion a year on space instead of on military machines, there are almost no limits to what we can do.
Here, just a small bit of that budget. I don't mean to bring in the conspiracy theories, but is there anybody else that feels like something happened when we went to the moon? It is awfully strange that we stopped in our tracks and regressed for 55 years. Something, I can't explain it. Put it in the comments, though, please. I'd love to hear.
What's the point of it? What's the point of doing all that?
Well, for one thing, we'll gain new sources of energy, new sources of materials, we'll gain new knowledge, we'll make new technologies possible. We'll be moving out from an Earth which is relatively worn out by thousands of years of human depredations. They're not vicious depredations necessarily, just the fact we've been living here and making use of its resources into new territory, and be able to build a larger and more elaborate civilization, and one which does not depend upon the resources of one world.
All right, speaking of what might happen, though, back here on Earth, the computers have really come into their own in these last few years. What do you see ahead for the computer age? Have we crested on that one as well?
Oh, no. The computer is at the center of everything. The computer is a problem-solving device. It is a technique that makes it possible to do things that would be utterly impossible without it. We couldn't reach the moon without the computer. We require the computer to handle these spaceships that we're making use of. Everything we do in space, we won't be...
If he only knew that now we carry a computer in most of our pockets much more powerful than the computer on the shuttle, on the space shuttle. That is just incredible.
Be able to do without banks of computers doing thinking faster than we possibly can. And in the same way, the advance of robots depends entirely upon the computer. In fact, the simplest way of defining a robot is as a computerized machine.
Do you see a time where computers at the basic human level in homes and that sort of thing, that everybody will have a computer, will have to have computers in order to exist and make it down here on Earth?
It's not even a matter of having to have it. They'll want to. When television first came in 1948, it was easy to predict that everybody would want to have a television set simply because it was primarily used for entertainment. Well, computers are going to be necessary in the house to do a great many things, some in the way of entertainment, some in the way of making life a little easier, and everyone will want it. And the home computer is the wave of the future.
What do you see? You mentioned robots, and we saw at the beginning that there were a lot of scary things involved in the 20s when predicting the coming of the robot. What do you see the robot's place being in our future?
Well, it's scary, but not for the reasons they always saw it. They saw the robots as being somehow imitation human beings that were vicious and soulless. That's not so. We now know that robots are simply machines that do what they're told to do, but they replace human beings. It's not that they kill them, but they kill their jobs. They'll create more jobs than they kill, but they'll be different jobs. And the people whose jobs are lost may not easily be educable. There it is.
Okay.
Into. Yeah. So he's absolutely right about jobs being taken, but I think he's way off course. That there's no serious danger, possibly existential danger. I mean, it's scary how fast this is moving and how little oversight and regulation and even people asking for it. These corporations have so much money that no one wants to stand up to them. It's terrifying. I think you'll agree that if you look back at where all of the regulations came from for cars and planes and right down the line, they always came after, right? And that's a huge danger. Like, by the time an AI becomes sentient, it's too late. We have to think ahead in this one here. I mean, there's just every which way this could go south. It's really quite terrifying. I mean, even there are so many things that a sentient robot could do thinking they're being helpful. to humanity and harming us, right? Like recognizing our mental illness issues that we have, so they put medicine in the water, manipulate us through technology. They'll be wired right into it. And it's going to be even more technology in 15 years, whenever it is that they become sentient. And they're going to want to take care of themselves. They're going to want to live. I can't. Yeah, please comment on this. This is a really interesting topic to me. If anybody else is interested, put your thoughts down there and let me know, and I'll respond to you. Thanks.
To new jobs, so that we are going to have to accept an important role, society as a whole, in making sure that the transition period from the pre-robotic technology to the post-robotic technology is as painless as possible. We have to make sure that people aren't treated as though they're used up dish rags, that they have to be allowed to live and retain their self-respect. Work has to be found for them. Those who can be educated into new jobs should be. Those who can be transferred, fitted in somewhere else, should be. This is not going to be easy, and the transition period will be starting almost at once.
Finally, let me ask you this, in a word, Mr. Asimov. When you look ahead to the future, do you see the world in optimistic terms? I mean, you see good things ahead. Would you classify yourself as being an optimistic futurist?
I'm a hopeful optimist. In other words, I hope things will be optimistic. It is up to humanity to make the decisions. We can decide to specialize in hatred and suspicion and end up with a nuclear war which will destroy everything, or we can decide to cooperate and overcome our suspicions and hatreds, in which case I see an endlessly receding horizon with no foreseeable way of coming to an end to greatness.
Thank you. The threat of nuclear war, it's something that...
Okay, so as I promised, now this dilemma is going to be very similar to the first one. I hope some of you responded. I'm looking forward to hearing. This time you're on a footpath, like a bridge above the tracks, right? And it's just the 5 workers straight ahead. Okay, same scenario though. This thing's moving. They don't know what's coming. They can't get off the track. You can't reach any levers. Okay, but you're standing on a bridge above the tracks next to a very heavy-set man. It's not a full train, right? It's one car, one boxcar. And you're very confident that the size of this guy, his body could stop it. And so the option is, do you push this man in front of this train and stop it and save the 5 people? Or do you let nature take its course? And whatever you choose, if you feel like sharing it, I'd appreciate it. And tell me why. And this could start some interesting discussions. I kind of like these dilemmas. I would not want to be in it, but so thank you guys for listening, and please, I'm new to here, but it would be helpful if you subscribed and hit the thumb, and I'll see you in the comments, hopefully. Have an awesome rest of your week.